morning. My name's John Adams. It's July the 21st, 2018, and we're here on behalf of the Loudoun County Farm Museum, Heritage Farm Museum. And with me today is Bill Harrison, the president of the museum, Kim Pregartner, and Chris Turow. They are on camera and in the background, so you can't see them right at the moment, but they are present, and I'm sure we'll hear from them later. But our honored guest today and host is R.T. Lagarde Jr., and we'll find out where the junior comes at another point in time. But R.T., welcome to our interview, and welcome and thank you for hosting us this morning.
Thanks for coming out, John.
We're at Glenmore Farms, which is the home family farm of your dad and grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to talk so much right now about the family history, but R.T. is an eminent scholar and knowledge maker with regard to the tractor industry and particularly as a collector. You've been collecting tractors for how long and equipment?
Started collecting in 1978.
But what spawned your interest in collection?
Had two farm tractors broken down summer of '78. I was needing something to pull hay wagons and rakes and light duty farm work, and had a neighbor that had an old John Deere A that he had restored in Go Ag class, and it was parked in his yard. It was for sale.
I see.
So
Farmo A.
No, John Deere A.
John Deere A.
Mm-hmm. And I knew it was older than the A I grew up with, but I didn't know how old. It was hand start, whereas our John Deere A had electric start. So after I'd owned a tractor for about 6 months, I was over at Glad Hills and I had him check the serial number. And it turned out to be a 1941. I said, gee, that's 2 years older than I am. Somebody ought to save that.
And that was the beginning.
That was the beginning.
So tell us a little bit about your collection. Over the years, what have you assembled?
Well, I've assembled tractors from about 35 different companies, and total tractor numbers, including riding lawnmowers and junk tractors, parts tractors, is 182.
182.
Which is ridiculous.
But you've enjoyed every bit of it, haven't you?
I have. I've saved many from the junkyard, and hopefully somebody will restore them someday.
That's right. If they'd gone, they were gone, right?
They would have been gone forever.
Yeah. Now today we're at Glenmore Farms, and you're outside of Purcellville here, and you've been on this farm for how long?
I came back here when I graduated from college, which was March of 1966.
And so you've used the tractors that your dad had to farm here, and then after 1978, you collected other tractors that I presume some of them you've also used.
I've used everything that runs gets used in some way or another.
Well, that's good. That's good.
I've had at least 10 out raking hay, and yesterday I had 4 different ones that pulled the wagons loading the wheat, all antiques.
Great, that's just wonderful. Now this morning you have set out approximately 10 different tractors for us to review, and the idea of this review this morning is to capture for historical purposes your knowledge of the tractor industry starting from the beginning to where we are today. So we're going to start with the gasoline engines here behind us. So let's proceed forward, and I will talk with you as we go from one tractor to the other, and give a little history of each one and what maybe a story or two associated with each one. Is that all right?
All right.
All right, let's get started.
So our first stop this morning is the original gasoline engines, and RT's been good enough to put 3 of them out for us to review. So RT, why don't you start with this one in front here and give us a little history of each one and what they meant to the industry.
Well, the gas engines came about before the tractor. They became available in the 1890s in up through the 1920s, and they came in various sizes, from half horsepower up to 20 horsepower or larger. I brought out 3 of the smaller ones, but the first 2 are John Deere engines. This is a 1.5 horsepower. It could have been used to run a corn sheller, grist mill, washing machine, ice cream freezer. Anything that would have taken originally hand power, hand crank items.
And I would gather that when these came out, the tractors weren't readily available. So
They were not.
These substituted for the tractor itself.
They really did. They really did.
So when did you acquire these, and have you used any of these?
These are all running. About 10 years I've owned that one. The painted up John Deere I've had for 25 years. I came from Gary Hornbaker's family. And I just, as I was looking for tractors, if I saw a gas engine, I tried to buy it.
Now, have you actually used any of these for any particular use on the farm, or?
Yes, they've been used at Waterford.
At the Waterford Fair?
At the Waterford Fair, and running the corn sheller down there, the grist mill, burr mill on the larger engine, and water chopper on the 4.5 horse engine behind it.
Very good. Well,
Okay.
thank you for bringing these out for us to look at and explain them to us. We're going to move on now to our next stop.
Then for the larger tractors today is one of an old tractor that he acquired called a Hart Par, and it was manufactured in Charles City, Iowa. And RT, tell us a little bit about this tractor and its historical importance.
Well, Charles Hart and Charles Parr were really considered the fathers of the tractor industry. They started building tractors in 1901, but 1907 they had a very successful tractor that sold over 4,000 units over a period of 10, 11 years. It was so successful that it was nicknamed Old Reliable.
So this is your old Reliable, is it?
Well, this particular one is not, but we'll show you a picture of one. And the earliest tractors, many of them were built to take the place of steam engines. And the tractor that Hart Par was so successful with weighed 1.5 times what the Avery does, to just give you an idea of the scale.
And what weight would that have been?
That was 9 tons.
9 tons. And that was comparable to the old steam engine.
Yes. And it was oil cooled. There was a reason for that. All these early tractors that you see here today ran on kerosene. Much cheaper than gasoline. And to run on kerosene, you needed a hot temperature. You started on gasoline. When the engine warmed up, converted over to kerosene. Many of the tractors had features to help to heat that engine up quickly.
I see, especially in colder weather.
In colder weather, yes. And
So this really represents the first industrialized produced tractor, really, in America, right?
yes, the company.
The company.
The earliest tractors are built on the channel iron frame that you see here. They had what they call the force feed oiler. No oil pump the way we're used to. The operator's manual will tell you to crank this 40 to 50 times before starting the engine. And there's 7 little tubes in here, and that oils the main bearings and the pistons. The piston had a groove in the top to catch the oil. So this is out of a smaller tractor. It's also out of a Hart Par, but a smaller Hart Par.
So show us where the oil would be caught here.
Oil would be caught in this groove right here, flow down this path to oil the piston pin, and splice system in the crankcase.
And that was a breakthrough.
This was one of the earliest attempts. When you're running on kerosene, it would dilute the engine oil. So by running this force-feed oiler, you had fresh oil going to the bearings at all times.
Made it more efficient.
Not really more efficient, but by today's standards, it would be considered wasteful.
Wasteful.
The excess oil dripped out onto a large spur gear. So as it goes through and no longer needed in the engine crankcase, the oil would drip out to all these gears.
I see. So it really wasn't wasted then?
Not wasted, no. But
all right, well, we're going to have you start this tractor to demonstrate how you would start an early tractor. And go ahead, let's proceed to do that.
well,
Why don't you explain what you're doing as you're doing it?
okay, this main tank was the kerosene tank. We're running on straight gas today because we're not going to run it very long, not long enough to heat the engine up. So the gas is turned on. You crank this oiler to get fresh oil to all the bearings. It's equipped with priming cups, so we prime it with gasoline. Okay, this is priming cup and a compression release. The compression release makes it crank over easier. So prime it with gasoline. These large engines, large pistons, like a lot of priming gas. And we're going to retard the mag to keep it from kicking back. And
For this to stop, and you might explain why it took so long for it to stop. They didn't have electrical switches back then, did they?
no, they didn't, but I could retard the mag enough to kill it. I run it out of gas each time because of the gas coming up. So I cut the gas off at fuel bowl. The gas that's in the carburetor bowl is what was running, it was running on.
So what would be your final thoughts on this tractor? Is this one of your favorite tractors that you've owned?
It's one of them. This tractor was obsolete the day it was built. I could show you pictures. This company was sold to Oliver in 1929.
I see.
So this is the forerunner of the Oliver Corporation.
That's very interesting. I remember the old Oliver tractors very well. Thank you. Okay,
so much.
We're at the very next tractor, and RT, this is a much larger tractor. Can you explain some of the major differences and some of the features of this tractor, early features?
Yeah, the early tractors, one direction was that these tractors were to replace the steam engine. So they were as large as a steam engine. This particular tractor is actually built on one of their Avery's steam engine running gears. And you'll notice the log chain steering and the old design. So one thing, this the tractors, rather than have a model number, they gave them a horsepower rating. This tractor is rated at 2550, and that means 25 horsepower on the drawbar, 50 on the belt pulley.
I see.
The Hart bar I failed to mention was in 1836. So roughly, it took half the horsepower just to move the tractor.
It was so heavy. What would this tractor weigh?
This one empty weighs 12,500.
So,
But it holds 35 gallons of water and 50 gallons of gas.
but the primary use was for belt use,
Yes, it was.
and that would be for thrashing and for other uses.
Thrashing, sawmill, filling silo. All the larger tractors normally ran sawmill in the wintertime.
Okay.
Uh,
How long have you had this tractor?
15 years, roughly.
And where was it acquired?
I acquired it in Pennsylvania, just above Westminster, Maryland,
I see.
but it originally came out of Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Now, Avery built one larger than this. All the companies built larger tractors. This tractor has 6-foot drive wheels, and it's 9 foot 4 inches tall. The big Avery had 8-foot drive wheels and was 11 foot 4 inches tall. And the guy that I bought this from had the big one sitting right beside it, but it was already sold. It went to the Chicago area. It was out of my price range.
So this was a company out of Peoria, Illinois.
Yes, it was.
Is there a reason? I'm sure there is a good reason why all these companies started in the Midwest.
Well, that was more of an industrial center.
But they also had a good market for it too.
Yes, they did. You mentioned the belt work that this tractor did, but they also pulled a 5 or 6 bottom plow out in the corn belt in the Midwest area.
So they could really get more work done with a unit like this, as compared to the horse-drawn.
Now, a couple unusual things about this tractor. It has a 4-cylinder opposed motor. So 2 cylinders up front and 2 in the rear. This motor with exhaust is 7 feet long.
Wow.
And the motor and the radiator is mounted on an angle iron, and to shift gears you move the entire motor.
Is that right?
So
That's not very efficient, is it?
no. If you'd like, I could show that for you. What I'm going to do is shift this high-speed pinion gear over for high gear.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
And this is a reverse
Yeah,
gear
can-
right here. That I pull that idler gear up and I have reverse. Okay. Right now the tractor is in neutral. I can shift to the high-speed pinion gear. It gives me high gear by shifting this collar over to put it in mesh with the transmission. You can see how that moves. And while the motor is in the forward position, I can also pull this idler gear back, and that gives me reverse. So you can see, watch this reverse come up.
And the whole thing moves.
All right, now we're getting ready to go for low speed, and I move the entire engine about 2 inches. It's going to move forward on that channel iron.
I see it
Could
move.
you catch that? Neutral. Low gear.
Do it again. Let's do that again.
Neutral. Low gear.
Good. We got it.
I don't know how much weight I'm moving, but it's quite extensive.
Very good.
Is there a clutch on this thing?
There is. This is the clutch. All the way forward is drive, and all the way back puts a brake on the belt pulley. Center position, it runs free.
Okay, our next tractor is a Mogul tractor, and I see the date on it is 1916. So tell us a little bit about this tractor.